Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something really quite challenging in public health. It's this paradox, why people sometimes avoid free medical screening that could genuinely save their lives. Specifically, we've got some sources outlining a pretty radical idea. It's open source, actually, aimed at sidestepping fear and changing how we think about breast cancer screening. And we really have to start with the scale of the problem here. The numbers we saw in the sources are, well, they're stark. They suggest around 10,000 deaths every year, just in the U.S., are linked to women not getting screened or delaying it too long. 10,000. I mean, think about that. That's potentially 10,000 lives that maybe could have been saved if the approach, the messaging had been different.
It's a staggering figure, and it really points to a failure in how current awareness campaigns are landing, especially with certain groups. And what's interesting here is where this idea is coming from. It's not your typical public health academic paper. The source material points to Dr. Ari Massoudi. His background is quite unique for this molecular biology, then regenerative medicine research, and now he's a business consultant. Right? So he's looked at this problem, identified this huge behavioral gap, and instead of, patenting some solution, he's basically putting the whole concept out there freely as a challenge, really, for entrepreneurs, for nonprofits, NGOs who want to make a difference.
NGOs being non-governmental organizations like charities, public health groups, for anyone maybe not familiar with the term.
Exactly.
And that open source angle is key, isn't it? Because the problem is clearly massive, too big for just one group using the same old playbook. So our mission today is to really unpack Dr. Massoudi's thinking. He has these two core hypotheses for completely reframing screening campaigns, moving way beyond the sort of standard messages we tend to hear every October during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Okay, let's get into it. So this issue really came into focus for Dr. Massoudi when he was working with an e-health startup. This was between 2019 and 2023, looking at screening data. Logically, you'd think free screening means everyone who needs it gets it. But nope. The data showed that over 40% of women who are eligible for free screening, they actively avoid it, sometimes for years.
40%. That is almost half. Half the people who qualify are opting out of something that could save their life. It's hard to comprehend.
And the friction point, the sources really emphasize this. It boils down to fear. There was this quote included from a patient that just hits hard. I buried my head in the sand and I regret it.
Yeah. And she didn't avoid it because she couldn't afford it or couldn't get there. It was purely psychological resistance.
And the argument in the sources is that this resistance, it's actually being fueled, maybe accidentally, by the awareness campaigns themselves. How does that work?
Well, it's this strange split. If you're someone who's already engaged, already getting screened, seeing those images of, smiling, strong, fighting survivors, that can be really empowering. It builds solidarity.
Right. It reinforces your decision.
Yeah.
It makes you feel part of something positive.
Exactly. But if you're in that hesitant 40%, if you're already anxious about it, those same images can induce, intense fear. The sources mention interviews where women described these positive images, even the really stylized ones, using words like mutilated.
Oh.
Yeah. So the message designed to show resilience ends up triggering this really visceral fear. Fear of the test, fear of what they might find, fear of the treatment.
So the very message meant to encourage participation actually creates this wall of avoidance for a huge chunk of the target audience.
Precisely. It backfires. And that backfiring, according to the sources, contributes to those 10,000 preventable deaths each year.
It's like trying to cure a phobia by showing someone pictures of the thing they're terrified of.
Yeah.
It just makes the fear bigger.
That's a great analogy. And Massoudi's argument is if you want to get past that, you have to secure the commitment before the fear really kicks in, when the person is calm, rational.
Okay, so that brings us to the proposed solutions. The first hypothesis is about timing and audience, right?
Yeah.
He questions who we're targeting.
Exactly. He asks, why wait until women hit 50 or whatever the screening age is? That's precisely when the fear is likely to be highest because the risk feels immediate.
Right. So the idea is target them much earlier.
Yes. Target high school girls, college students, women in their 30s, maybe early 40s, people who aren't eligible yet but know they likely will be someday.
Okay, I can see targeting women in their 30s or 40s, but high school, college, isn't that a bit abstract?
Yeah.
How does a 19-year-old really connect with a potential health issue decades down the line?
That's a fair question, and it leads directly into the second and maybe more critical hypothesis. You have to radically change the message. You're right, a 19 or 25-year-old probably isn't thinking about mammograms yet, and that's the whole point. They don't have the associated fear yet.
Ah, okay, so you don't talk about the disease itself.
Not directly. Instead of focusing on fighting cancer, the message becomes about committing to yourself, protecting your future self. It reframes screening not as this scary medical necessity, but as a proactive act of self-care, a responsibility you take on today for the woman you'll be tomorrow.
So less about fear, more about personal responsibility and future planning.
Exactly. And this isn't just wishful thinking or clever marketing. It's grounded in some pretty solid behavioral science.
Okay, let's dig into that. What's the science that makes a promise made at, say, age 25 stick until you're 50?
Yeah.
How does that commitment survive 2 decades?
It hinges on something called commitment theory. It's a cornerstone of behavioral economics, really. The basic idea is that we humans have this deep psychological need for internal consistency. We really dislike feeling like hypocrites, especially to ourselves.
Okay.
So our past actions, especially commitments we've made, become powerful predictors of our future actions. We strive to act in ways that are consistent with our previous decisions.
Right. We want our actions today to align with what we've said or did yesterday.
Precisely. And the sources use this great little example, asking a kid to clean their room. If they just say, yeah, okay, it might happen, it might not.
Usually not, in my experience.
Right. But if you get them to actually write down and sign a little note saying, I promise I'll clean my room by X time, the chance of them doing it goes up significantly.
Because the physical act of writing and signing makes it more concrete, more real.
Exactly. It anchors the decision. It's not just a fleeting thought anymore. It's a documented commitment they feel obliged to honor.
I see. So it creates a link you feel bad breaking later.
Yes. And that effect gets even stronger. It gets nudged when you add a few key elements that behavioral science has identified. 1, the commitment is made public in some way. 2, it's shared with an audience that matters to the person, friends, family, social network. And 3, there's some kind of symbolic investment attached, even a tiny one.
Okay, so that's the nudge concept, using these small, non-coercive factors to steer behavior toward the better outcome. Not forcing anyone, just making the desired action more likely because it aligns with their own stated values or commitments.
That's it perfectly. It leverages our own psychology.
So how does Dr. Masudi propose putting all this together? Commitment theory, the nudge, targeting younger women.
Yeah.
What does the actual campaign look like?
Okay, so the core proposal is this. Invite women well before they hit screening age, maybe around college graduation, maybe a milestone birthday like 30, to sign a symbolic contract. It's essentially a commitment letter addressed to their future self. They write it, sign it by name, promising that future self that, yes, they will get screened when the time comes.
A letter to yourself. Interesting. How did the nudge elements get built in?
Through the mechanics. First, the medium. It would likely be a dedicated website. Simple, easy to use, where you can write and digitally sign this letter. Makes the act itself straightforward.
Okay, simple execution. What about the public part?
That's key. The idea is to encourage women, with their full consent obviously, to publish their signed letter online. Maybe on the site itself, maybe share it on social media. This makes the promise public. It tells your network, this is important to me. That significantly raises the personal stakes for following through later. You don't want to publicly commit and then bail.
Right, the social accountability aspect. And the third lever was the symbolic investment, the dollar.
Correct. When signing the letter, the proposal suggests asking for a minimal symbolic contribution, just $1. And crucially, that dollar isn't for profit. It goes directly to established, recognized nonprofits in the field like the American Cancer Society, Susan G. Komen, organizations like that.
So it's not a payment, it's associating the promise with a positive charitable act.
Precisely. It's not about the amount. $1 is negligible for most. It's the act of investing, even symbolically, that cements the commitment psychologically. It links the promise to doing good.
Okay, so they write the letter, share it maybe, make the $1 donation. Then what? How do they remember years later?
The final piece. The system sends an automated reminder, an email, maybe a text message. It arrives precisely on their 50th birthday or whatever the relevant screening age is for them based on guidelines or their insurance.
Wow, right when they need to take action.
Exactly. It's a message from their past self, arriving at the critical moment saying, hey, remember that promise you made? Now's the time.
So the whole bet, the core hypothesis Dr. Masudi is putting out there,
is that women who engage with this process, who write that letter at 20, 30, 40, will be significantly more likely to actually get screened at 50 compared to women who don't, because they made the decision proactively before the fear became overwhelming. They created a strong psychological link between their younger, hopeful self and their future self who needs to take action. They've essentially preempted the avoidance.
They've inoculated themselves against the fear, in a way.
That's a good term for it. It's a behavioral inoculation.
It's fascinating how this all circles back to that initial tragic statistic, the 10,000 preventable deaths.
It does. This whole idea was born from asking why that number is so high and realizing the current approach isn't working for everyone. It fundamentally shifts the conversation for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, potentially. Instead of focusing only on the disease, the treatments, the fight, it shifts shifts to talking about the promise, about self-responsibility, about proactive self-care looking towards the future.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway? This isn't just some theoretical idea. It's presented as a practical, open-source blueprint.
Right. It's a challenge to innovators, nonprofits, entrepreneurs in the health space to take this behavioral science framework and actually build it, test it, see if it can move the needle on those screening rates.
It relies entirely on understanding human psychology, that drive for internal consistency, rather than just repeating medical facts or relying on fear.
Exactly. It's a soft psychological nudge aiming for a very hard, life-saving public health outcome.
It really makes you think. If this kind of commitment nudged a symbolic promise, making it public, a tiny investment could work for something as significant as cancer screening. Where else could we apply it? Think about other public health goals like vaccinations or maybe quitting smoking, or even outside health like sticking to financial goals or personal projects.
Absolutely. The potential applications are broad once you understand the underlying principles of commitment and consistency.
Definitely something to think about further. Where could a simple promise made at the right time make a difference? That's certainly something to mull over.